Hi, my name is Mark Walker and we're here at Money20 Europe. I'm going to start off by asking my interviewee to introduce himself to you, the audience.
Hello, my name is Scott Dawson. I'm the CEO of DECTA Limited, the UK business within the DECTA Group.
Fantastic. So, DECTA, as we were just saying, I know you pretty well, but if you could sum it up for the audience in a sort of a quick elevator pitch, what do you do?
Payment stuff, lots of it. We're a proper end-to-end payment solution designed to help banks, fintechs, other PSPs, and merchants grow. We provide a wide array of payment services from issuing to acquiring, technical issuing, technical acquiring. We have a white label gateway, a digital banking platform and such. Essentially, if there's a payment requirement, we can facilitate it with one of our products. We provide regulated services within the EU and UK and technology services on a global basis.
Fantastic. So you're kind of like well positioned, I would say, especially because you've been around for quite a while, to talk us through what you're seeing as the current trend in payments. We hear a lot about wallets, we hear a lot about cards, we hear a lot about everything. What's your take on that?
I think the trend at the moment is less about new and more about building what already exists. So even at Money20 this year, I'm hearing a lot about AI, particularly within fraud prevention. We're hearing a lot about embedded finance and enabling non-fintechs to provide financial services, which I think is phenomenally important and positive. We are hearing a lot about cross-border payments. And just generally, I think a lot of the trend at the moment is taking ideas that have existed for 5-10 years and really fine-honing them to say that's a little more efficient, a little more accessible, a little more cost-effective, a little more secure. Open banking, again, being a really good example. It's been around since 2018, but I really feel as though it's only 2025. It's starting to get some traction, at least within the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and I think you're kind of right there. And you can never always be new at something. Sometimes you just need to start doing things better and more efficiently. So would that be sort of your take on it, in that it's not always reinventing the wheel, it's more about making it more efficient?
Yeah, that's something I've been speaking and writing about often recently. And I'm a man who loves words. I'm certainly full of a lot of them. And I think as an industry, we need to spend less time talking about innovation and more time talking about progress, because innovation is simply something new. Progress is actual positive change within society. And I think there's a lot of innovative ideas that lead to progress, but there's also a lot of progress that doesn't require innovation. I think as an industry, we really need to be focusing on that progress element at this point.
I think there's that sort of scenario of actually tech isn't the issue anymore. You know, we've got all the tech we ever need. We just need to implement it correctly. We need everyone to agree on the right ways to do things. Is that something you'd conscribe to?
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said. I mean, looking at this very much from a UK-centric perspective at this point in time, as I'm the CEO of the UK entity, we're seeing SME struggle at this point in time. And it's an odd struggle to me because the tools, the infrastructure, the support they need is technically there. And yet in the UK right now, they're not thriving. And they should be. They're responsible for, I think it's something along the lines of 61% of employment. That's 16 million jobs. Depending on how you define an SME, they're responsible for a turnover of between, I think it's 2.4 to 4.5 trillion annually. And yet these businesses, with all the infrastructure we can provide them right here, right now, aren't thriving. And that's something we really need to address.
And do you think there is a particular reason that they're not getting access to it? Do they just not know it's available, or do you think there's other hurdles in the way?
I don't think it's a particular reason as much as particular reasons. Access to finance for SMEs is still very difficult. Obviously, the world is kind of a chaotic and scary place at the moment. Costs are increasing, employment is becoming harder, regulatory obligations are costly and demanding. I just think, generally speaking, right here, right now, we have so much potential within that space, but we make it very difficult for those businesses to capitalize upon it.
And I think, as you say, that SME sort of engine, if you like, is all often described as the engine of an economy. And therefore, you would expect it to be well serviced and well looked after. But that doesn't seem to be the case, as you say, for lots of other geopolitical reasons. I guess, what would be the solutions? What would be needed to address that sector a little bit more?
I think in addition to continuing to innovate within our space, obviously, it goes back to that focus on progress. We need structural change that will support these businesses. We need legislation that will help SMEs grow. We need efforts to reduce cost. We need better access to finance. We also just need to be listening. We need to be listening to what it is SMEs want. We need to be listening, more importantly, to what it is consumers want, so that these businesses have the fuel required to grow. This industry as a whole, which I've grown up in and love, I want to be very clear, sometimes has a tendency to tell merchants and consumers what they want as opposed to listening to what they need. And I think that's something we really need to be cognizant of.
That's kind of where we are at the moment. Where do you see the future going? Obviously, we've talked about the future is not about innovation. Where do we see the payments landscape in the UK, for example, in the next 2 years?
If we make the necessary changes and if we help cultivate those businesses in terms of their growth, I think we have a very positive future. I don't want to come across as though things are awful right now. We are seeing growth in the UK. I think a lot of our industry is looking to support those organizations, those consumers and those businesses and such. And I think if we keep doing what we're doing, I think if we fine tune the tools that are there, if we make technology more accessible, it's inevitably going to lead to the growth that's required right now.
Fantastic. So if you had to kind of sum up the one thing that we should be focusing on as my final question, what would your sort of final thought be?
You know, we talk to merchants on a regular basis. It's just what we do, it's what we focus on and such. And a really recurring theme we have in those conversations is that they just want simple, cost-effective, secure solutions. And I think right now, if we really want to help these businesses grow, for all the fancy things we can do and should do, we also need to kind of have a grassroots, back to basics approach where we make accessible technology that simply gives these businesses what they need. The extra layers of complexity that we can provide and some of the amazing things that those layers can do are important, and we need to continue to grow them. But fundamentally, safe, secure, cost-effective solutions that can help businesses grow. DECTA recently did a really interesting piece of research in partnership with Censuswide and our PR firm Sky Parlor, with the whole goal being to determine what it is that merchants should be requiring for their payment service provider. And the way we went about that wasn't talking to PSPs or merchants, it was actually talking to the consumers themselves. And so we did a really comprehensive piece of research that'll be available probably by the time this gets released, just asking consumers, what is it you need? What would make you feel secure and trusting and using your payment provider and purchasing more online? And the results are quite interesting. I look forward to sharing them with the general public.
We very much look forward to covering them as well. Thanks very much for spending the time with us.
Thanks for your time, Mark.